Jake from State Farm? Hey, it's John with John's Custom Saws. Oh, I gotta make a claim. Some total idiot lost control of his machine, took out the back of my Honda. Yep, some wannabe cowboy had too many ponies between his legs. Sounds good, buddy. You know where to send the check. All right. Thanks, Jake. That could have went better. So, let's throw that down there. It's not even a real phone. The pit bike is ported, and holy shit, this thing is, it's crazy. It actually feels like a real dirt bike with a abrupt power band. I'm gonna have to put the governor in it for my 8-year-old because he's not real used to riding it, and it's a total different machine. So again, I get a big smile on my face when I ride it because I wasn't kidding when I said it in my last video. Terrible parents that never bought me anything, like, you know, dirt bikes and shoes and hugs and cereal and all that good stuff that other kids had. You know, I was literally raised by beagles. I wasn't cool enough to be raised by wolves, so kind of a rough one. But so this is a true story. One of my first bikes, probably like my second or third bike, was a dumpster bike. It happens. Still grateful for it, but my stepdad was a garbage truck driver for a few weeks, one of his multiple jobs, and he got me a bike out of the dumpster. So I literally tore it apart, spray painted it, and got dyno stickers from the local bike shop. You know, they gave them to me because I was always in there staring at everything and never bought anything, so they probably realized I was a insanely poor kid being raised by beagles, and they gave me some stickers. So I slapped my dyno stickers on my spray painted dumpster bike, and I was in with the cool kids instantly. It was then I realized that you can take something that's not rad and make it pretty rad, and I've done it ever since. True story. That's where I got my love of customizing and modifying and making everything your own. You know, it's been with me ever since I can remember, and it's because I was insanely poor. Now my kids got everything that they don't even ask for. My kids didn't ask for this. They didn't ask me to port it. I'm a terrible parent in a different way. I just buy them everything. These little 50cc's are so common. You can get them everywhere. They're all the same. They're all the same little engine. And this is for you guys that have one. If you really want to, you can make something pretty respectable out of it. If your kids race, I would port it. Okay, let's do this. So this is going to be a voiceover. I had an issue with my microphone, but anyway, this cylinder here on the left is the cylinder I'm going to be using since I have two full engines, but this cylinder on the right was the one that was on the bike, and it was ported actually. The exhaust port done, and it was decked. That's all I did to it, and it helped a ton. So I like how the newer cylinder, we're calling it, the one on the left that I am using, I like how the transfers are wider. I like how they're shaped a little better, and it has way better cylinder lining. Now, the cylinder here has the D-shaped combustion chamber, and I know there are going to be people that will be like, the D-shaped combustion chamber, it's awesome. I honestly, it's not something I've ever noticed. You know, it's not like I've put a cylinder with a D-shaped combustion chamber and been like, holy shit, that thing just runs awesome. It's probably the OCD in me, but I like the, you know, the even and symmetrical combustion chamber. That's just the way it is. So this is the one I'm going to use. So I am going to take so much off of the cylinder base and this ungodly heavy piston. So this piston is so freaking heavy, and you can see all that material that it's got on top. It's kind of a dome piston, but it's not domed like the way that I would do it. I have a ton of room. You have to keep a certain amount of material on the top, above the top ring, and I'm going to shave like 80 thou off this thing. You would probably not get away with that on most pistons, but I'm going to shave 80 thou off it, and I have a way lighter wrist pin that I just happen to have off a different saw. So let's weigh this bad boy. This is with the heavy wrist pin and no machining on my fancy NASA scale. And we got 74 grams. This is only a 44 millimeter piston and we got 74 grams, with the wrist pin, but that's insane. So can't show you how I machine it and what I use to hold it because that's my secret, but check that out. Way different. And look at that thin, this has the wrist pin in it. It's just a super thin, lightweight wrist pin. And I'm also going to run single ring, so that's going to come into play too, but I did a double dome actually. I've never done this before. So I had so much material that I cut my angle like I normally do, and then the section in the middle, which is usually flat, I dome that too. So 63 grams. So between the machining and the wrist pin, we shaved 11 grams off of a 74 gram piston. Percentage wise, it's like 1,000,000%. That's a lot. Now, I did mention that I am going to run only one ring, a single ring. I do like that. And that's 3 grams also. So technically 14 grams by the time you take the ring, the machining, and the wrist pin. That would be very noticeable just doing that alone. So now when you start taking a ton of material off of a piston or stuff like this, you got to start to think it's going to add up. You can't take a bunch of material off of one place and not off the opposite end. So now I got to do a ton of machining to the cylinder base. I got room for it. This cylinder's got a pretty thick base on it. So now I got to take around 100 thou off it. And when I machined this, again, this is a voiceover, I literally did my first pass was around 10 thou, and my lathe is dead on, my mandrel's dead on, I use dial indicators, I get these things right on. And this is my first pass. You can see that I'm making full contact on this side right here, and then my cutter goes around, I'm not even touching the other side. So it was over 10 thou off from corner to corner or side to side, whatever you want to say. So again, I see this a lot with these Chinese cylinders, and that's, when the base gasket is only like 11 thou, that's cutting it. That's cutting it close. No pun intended. So I won't show you all the machining, but I take about 10 thou a shot when I do my machining. So literally had to do like 10 passes. And I'm gonna set my squish for around 22 thou, maybe somewhere in there. And yeah, I'm not gonna show you all this, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. And also, when you have a cylinder that has skirts on it, like this one does, if you're going to take 100 thou off of the base of the cylinder, you got to take 100 thou off of the skirt. Otherwise, you could push your cylinder down and it'll end up hitting your crankcase. So, pretty basic stuff. If you're machining cylinders, isn't anything that you're going to learn something from, but there we go. So she's all done, cut, filmed her, and yeah, I got everything machined. I machined up the skirt too, so it kind of had a taper to it, so I remachined that out, and I took like 120 thou off of the skirt just so I made sure I had tons of room. It's not gonna hurt anything. And there we go, it's a machined cylinder, and I mean, it looks good. So just beware if you're gonna do a ton of machining again on the piston and base. Now we got the exhaust port traced out. So the bottom line on the screen is the top of the exhaust. I think you guys understand that. I have the piston is basically like a full circle piston, but it has these two skirts sticking down. So you got to kind of be aware of that for widening ports, but I'm not going to widen this at all because it's going to get plenty big. Again, took a lot off the top of the piston, took a lot off the base, but when you do both of those, you're kind of staying even because you're not just decking the cylinder a ton, you're also dropping the corner of the piston, if that makes sense. Anyway, I want to raise this exhaust port a bit, so I'm ending up, by the time everything's said and done, I'm raising this 82 thousandths. So I'm gaining around 50 thou. This is kind of complicated to explain, especially with a voiceover, but Now, the lines that I have drawn are just kind of for reference, but there we go. So I got the rough cut done at the cylinder wall. So the way that I port, and this does work really good, I get my shape at the cylinder wall, and I don't do anything towards the outside or the exhaust side, or exhaust pipe side. Then I'll grab a gasket or trace the shape that I need. Then I'll have my cut done on the inside of the cylinder, and then I will make a cut on the outside. Then I know where I am at both points, inside and outside. Okay? Then I make sure I have a straight line, none of this wavy shit. It's all about flow with these cylinders when you're doing porting and timing, but you don't want valleys and hills and all that shit. You want a straight shot funnel. We're directing air, we're helping flow, and that's something that if I see this wavy, hilly shit like this, a big bunch of material that somebody missed in the middle, or they open the exhaust port way up at the cylinder wall but not on the other side, I just, to me that just seems like you're doing a lot of work for nothing, and shows kind of inexperience. But this is very rough cut. So now I have the shape on the outside. So this exhaust is getting big. This is going to be a big difference. At this point, I was going to stop, but I was like, I'm doing all this work. I think they call it the snowball effect when you're crazy as hell and you are off your meds and you port the shit out of your 8-year-old's dirt bike cylinder. I think that's the snowball effect, right? So I kind of went crazy on it. Not gonna lie. So here it is done. We got a pretty damn decent looking exhaust port. It's polished. It's huge. That's right where I want it. This was gonna be a half-hour job, I told myself, and then it got crazy. So the transfers. I've never actually shown this before. This is what they look like before I started. Now this looks just like a 200T, the transfers. And I've done a lot of 200Ts. A lot. I have a lot of testing. I have a lot of reasons why I do the things I do with the transfers. And I figured, why not do my 200T trick? I call it the elephant foot trick. And it's all about directing flow, how it fills the cylinder. Now, I kind of screwed you there and didn't show you that for very long, but I also cut the squish band. I did a lot to this cylinder, a lot. And is the end result worth it? Well, since this is voiceover, I already know the answer to that, but I can tell you, I already knew at this point, before I ran it, it was going to be crazy different. And it was. It ran like hell. It's a whole different machine. I always say, like, when you port something, it should be night and day difference. It should be very noticeable. But sometimes when the stars align, you port something and it's almost unbelievable. Okay, so I'll probably get accused of doing some trickery or something, but I'm promising you guys, this is legit. So you're going to see this thing running stock versus ported. It's the same cylinder. It's the same everything, same fuel. I will mention too, I don't get paid by these guys or nothing, but this is what I use in everything, whether it's recommended 32-to-1 or 50-to-1. This is the best fuel ever. It's expensive and whatnot, but I run it in everything. So when it was stock, it smoked really bad. But I did 3 heat cycles, and then I recorded it running stock. And then 3 heat cycles, recorded it running after it was ported. It's crazy. Check this out. Bike on the planet. This is insane. I did a few heat cycles already. It's a whole different bike. a little uncalled for. I swear to God, that was no tomfoolery on my end. Now, here it is, back and forth, stock versus ported. Side by side, basically. Now, I promise you, I'm not doing anything goofy, and I know I'm on the ported cylinder. I'm sitting there revving it all like wah, 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 just because it was fun. It was actually snappy. It's never been like that. Good Lord. Now, if anybody thinks, oh, you probably lost mid-range and torque, absolutely not. I do this test where I drive it up the hill in front of my house. When it's stock, I can't make it up the hill. I don't have it recorded of me not making it up the hill. I didn't think to do it, I guess, but I did try and I couldn't make it. So this is the same test after it was ported. And I think I literally needed the brakes at the end. It's a whole different bike. So I look like a bear on a tricycle, but whatever. Here it is. Well, there we go. I mean, I don't know how else to really show how much more powerful it is. It's a whole different bike. To get something that doesn't have, it's just got one gear and it's got a heavy clutch and geared down, so it's, it's kind of tame, I guess you could say, but now it feels like a real dirt bike with landing on it, not my big ass. It's gonna be rad. So, whole different deal. I'd like to see how it stacks up against some of the other 50s that they race. You're not allowed to run the KTM and Yamaha and stuff, but you can run these Chinese little pit bikes and do pretty much anything to them except for a big bore, I guess. But it'd be nuts to see how this thing stacks up against those, because unless they literally sent it to somebody that did what I did, it's not even going to be close. Weight becomes a pretty big factor. So my kid's pretty light, so I tell you what, guys, this thing was beyond my expectations. That's so cool that it's my kid's dirt bike. Holy shit, I'd have been so happy to have something like that. But I don't, I joke around and stuff. I had a fun childhood. I had a lot of friends. My parents were shitty, but I don't talk to them anymore. I had a lot of good friends and a lot of good memories. I just like to dick around and be a dumbass. But let's go to the workbench and get serious, because I think this next video that I'm going to do is literally going to be what you guys have been waiting for. All you guys that are really trying to get into porting, I think there's something you just don't realize that might literally change everything for you, which is going to be my next video. So let's go talk about that for a sec. Now, check out these awesome drawings. And yes, if you know what you're looking at, you can already spot the mistake, because these are my transfers, but regardless. So this is something that is always kind of made me wonder, what people are thinking. And I mean no offense by this. So many of you guys want to know all about porting and all this stuff and how to do these builds. And I think that's awesome. But you get to the point where, you hear people like me, and I'll stand by this till the end, that you have to do machining. So people go, oh, I don't have a lathe, so I guess I'm done. And then they just keep watching porting videos and keep wishing they could do it. You don't need a lathe to get a cylinder and piston machined. You can send it off. There's lots of guys that'll machine them for you. That's what I used to do. And I was doing builds pretty much professionally. I mean, once I quit at the dealership and, did this full-time, I got a lathe, but I would always send mine off. I would get them done for $75. They would machine the piston and cylinder for me, and you just have to know by measuring your squish clearance. That's it. If you can measure your squish clearance with solder, it's the most simple thing ever. I'll show you how you figure out where you need to be,
and you can send your top end off to somebody that can machine it. Because if you do that, you have to know exactly where you want, say, 20 thou off your piston, 20 thou off your squish, and 50 thou off the base. So how do you know where to start with all that? You know, do you know what I mean? You have to kind of really know what you're looking at. There's a bit to it, but it's not that hard. So I think a lot of you guys that want to port, that are kind of stuck because you don't have a lathe, just don't realize that you can send this stuff off and get it done relatively cheap, and then you can do the porting yourself and have a legit built saw. Because I will never ever waver from what I stand by, and that is the machining is very important. If I could only do porting or machining, I would do machining. That's how important it is. It really is. So you do it together though. That's what I call a built saw. This is legit stuff. You guys could do your own built saws. I know there's so many of you that want to. And I'll show you how to do it in the next video. So there you go. Stay rowdy, my friends.